All right. Cancers, it's kind of a scourge on society, right? Um, it's the thing you worry about the most because we don't have really good treatments for them. But maybe you don't really know what it is. And in its simplest term, in simplest terms, it is uncontrolled cell division. Cell division that just rapidly happens. Now, what control, and so when we say cell division, I was talking about it earlier with, getting the cell, so you have two identical cells. Well, normally this happens at a slow rate or in response to a signal. And so cancer in general is just uncontrolled cell division, and normal cells only divide when they receive either an internal or an external signal telling them that it's time. So in some cases, you have these internal signals that over the course of time, they say, okay, it's been 24 hours, let's go on and do it. Or in other cases, you have some sort of a growth factor that is released, like when you get a cut. You want to increase cell division in that region because you've got damaged cells. So this is what we call the cell cycle. And now with the cell cycle, we've said you only produce cells when you need them. Now, if you do have a tumor and you say, what do? You go to the doctor and they do a biopsy, right? And and then you wait for a week and hopefully you get the word that the cancer was benign. And in the worst case scenario, you get that the cancer is malignant. Now, what are we talking about? If we say cancer is just uncontrolled cell division, that's this tumor, what makes the one so much better than the other? And what it is the connective tissue capsule. So when you talk about a benign tumor, it's really the same thing as a cancer. It's enclosed in a connective tissue capsule, and as a result of being enclosed in that, it tends to not spread. Now, when we talk about malignant, we say no, it's not contained, and it can spread to other tissues. So we have these sort of very simplistic descriptions of cancer. And so at this point, you want to click to slide number 16. And we have some characteristics of cancer. And some of these it's the loss of cell cycle control. Did you know that some genes tend to lead to susceptibility to cancer? So it's heritable. And so things like pancreatic cancer, there are a variety of cancers that some families tend to have a predisposition to have them, and it's because of their genes. So it's a heritable case. Now, if you ever see somebody who works in cancer research, they're pretty darn careful, aren't they? Who wants to get cancer? And why is that? It's because it's transplantable. If you work in the field of cancer, you can induce cancer in an animal by transplanting some cancer cells. So my wife was a lung cancer researcher at Pitt, and money dried up, and so she's retired now. But she's actually a very brilliant researcher. But obviously, anytime you were working with these different kinds of lung cancer, you had to be very careful. She had to be careful. So what is the big deal about having a whole lot of cells? Here's the problem. Those cells don't do anything. So all this time, for 2 lectures, I have been talking about how cells have different jobs. I'd said pancreatic cells producing digestive enzymes. I'd talked about liver cells doing this detox thing. They have different jobs. Well, you know what happens with a cancer cell? It doesn't do anything. It's just a cell. It's just a parasite on your body. It doesn't do anything it doesn't contribute anything. And the word for this is, the term is loss of differentiation. So when a cell is just a little baby cell and it's becoming a muscle cell, it differentiates into a cell that can pick up stuff. But cancers lose that. They don't do anything. They just are there. And normally, I said that cells respond to signals when it's time to divide. They also are inhibited by other signals, and it ends up when cells, tissue-type cells, bump into each other. This is what we call contact inhibition. We obviously don't need any more since you're bumping into each other. So cancers don't do that. What do cancers do? They pile up one on top of the other, and that's what a tumor is. A whole bunch of cells that don't do anything, that do not have contact inhibition. Now, you might wonder, how do you feed all those cells? Well, they stimulate something called angiogenesis. Angiogenesis means that it causes the creation of blood vessels to feed the cancer. So your body starts to preferentially feed the tumor. If you have something like pancreatic cancer, my mom died from pancreatic cancer, and the way that, and it's a bad one because you don't know you have it until it's pretty late. But what happened is it invaded her small intestine. So it blocked her small intestine, and so she was throwing up. That's how we figured out she had pancreatic cancer. So it's invasive, meaning it will just grow into and block other organs. And then, of course, there's this thing called metastasis. So spreading. It can spread from one tissue to another. So these are characteristics of cancers. So I think we have 3 slides dealing with that. I'm just taking a quick glance here. And it's usually a change in the genes, right? They get messed up genes. They have abnormal genes. Okay, so we have cancers that, I've gone down, I guess, 4 slides now. So we're at types of cancers. And so we have some different kinds of cancers. We have melanomas that are skin cancers, sarcomas that are connective tissue cancers, myosarcomas, muscle cancer. We have a lot of different cancers and what causes them. In many cases, it's a genetic change. So it's a mutation. Now, and so anything that causes these kinds of genetic changes that causes a cancer is considered a carcinogen. And in many times, what that means is it's a mutagen, meaning it's changing the genes. And obviously, when my wife's a lung cancer specialist, I think of cigarettes, and they are carcinogenic and mutagenic, and we know they cause lung cancer. That's not the only, the bad thing is that even people that never smoke sometimes develop lung cancer. But what other changes? So skin cancer, it's not smoking that causes it, it's the sun, overexposure to ultraviolet radiation. And then what about cervical cancer? The major cause, and there are vaccines out there, and hopefully as a young person, you've gotten vaccines against the human papillomavirus. they know that most cervical cancers come from a virus infection.